Well, President Donald Trump still appears hell-bent on scuttling the processes that will eventually lead to the swearing-in of Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States of America. Well, this much became more evident with the release of a phone call in which Trump is hard demanding that Republican officials in Georgia find him 11,780 votes that will make him winner of the presidential election in that state. Well, the stakes will likely become higher tomorrow, Tuesday, when two senatorial runoffs are held in that state, a contest that could tip the balance of power in the next Senate, as well as determine the progress of the Biden administration. Joining us now to look at all the possibilities regarding those runoffs and the build-up to the January 6 Biden certification session of Congress is Professor Chika Mordi, political scientist at Johns Hopkins and a member of the Democratic Congress. Glad to have you join us. Prof.
Glad to have you. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good. What's your sense of the President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump, still insisting on not congratulating the president-elect, Joe Biden, and still selling the narrative that this election was fraudulent?
It is pernicious and rather unfortunate. America has a very strong tradition that has been emulated world over in terms of a peaceful transition of power. And what is happening now is extraordinary in every sense of the word. There is no basis in fact to these claims. They've been tested in the judicial system. They failed in 60 court cases. And at every step, there's not just sufficient evidence to contest the outcome of that election. There are many ideas as to why he continues to go down this route, but that is for other people to speculate about.
Okay, Professor Mordi, we just heard Kamala Harris saying that it amounts to a bald-faced abuse of power by the president. Now, do you feel that there is enough to establish a legitimate abuse of power in the case of the president, who seems to have 9 lives?
I'm not a lawyer, and the appropriate legal remedies in the case of a sitting president are very limited. He can only be impeached, and now he has less than 2 weeks to depart office. So impeaching him becomes, well, I should say 17 days, becomes impractical. Generally, the Justice Department has a guidance that a sitting president cannot be indicted. So the only remedy is the political one, which is impeachment, which is very unlikely. However, post January 20th, should the Biden admin decide to pursue this, I suspect there's sufficient ground to make a case on the criminality of his action.
All right, Prof, saying there's fraud in this election, claiming that there's fraud is one thing. But then putting pressure on an election official is totally a different ball game. What does this portend for American politics and Americans in general?
You know, a couple of weeks or a month back, your sister publication, I had an article on the winners and losers of the election, and I had pending American democracy. And the reason was we wanted to wait to see the outcome of all of this shenanigans, quite frankly, is what they are, that were going on. And I must say that the guidance of health, American democracy is being able to, resist this extraordinary attempts by the most powerful person on earth, really, the president, to overturn the outcome of the election. But it is damaging to American democracy. The minute people start having doubts, and a substantial number of people, about the results of an election, then it affects the legitimacy of the president. And more importantly, the rest of the world, a lot of people who have looked up to American democracy, it's emboldened dictators and anti-democratic forces across the world. In fact, in Africa, in 2020, you had at least in East Africa, 3-4 countries that had some stability, if you call it that, have resorted to tactics that are seen in liberal democracies. And by this, I mean the arrest you saw of opposition leaders in Uganda, in Tanzania and in Zambia.
Okay, and now we have to sort of try and look behind the scenes or read between the lines, as it were, because the recording was made at the time of the elections, but it's only just being released, which suggests political maneuverings at play. How is this likely to play out at this crucial time when we're going to be having the senatorial elections in Georgia, seeing as Kamala Harris also played towards that crowd, saying your voice was not to be stifled?
Okay, so to be clear, the recording was from the latest phone call was from a couple of days ago, referring to this Tuesday, and you're right, it's going to have it's topical for Tuesday's election. Going into Tuesday, say a month ago, if you look at the election and November's election, structurally the GOP had an advantage. Right, despite the fact that Biden won the state by less than 12,000 votes. If you look at the down ballot races, like the Senate race, Perdue had 88,000 plus votes over Ossoff. And there's a third party candidate who was a libertarian, an ex-Republican, who got, again, roughly about 115,000 votes. So the deficit to overcome for Ossoff is about 4% or 20,000 votes. And it's a similar scenario with Warnock, even though he had multiple candidates. Now, the demographics of Georgia have changed to favor Democrats in recent times. But going in, the advantage appeared to be with the GOP. However, the false claims of electoral fraud by President Trump, has had the effect of dampening enthusiasm and discouraging GOP voters. So the early results we've seen so far for early voting in Georgia, two things stand out. First of all, is record-setting. Typically, Democrats have low turnout in off-cycle elections or special elections. This was record-breaking. You've had massive presidential election-style turnout, and the advantage is with the Democrats. So tomorrow, the GOP has to have massive turnout to overcome that deficit. Now, with what is going on the electoral fraud claims, this now becomes a very tight race, and it's up in the air. Now, would this phone call change the mind of people who are going to vote GOP? Very unlikely. President Trump has successfully reconstructed the GOP as a personality cult, and very little changes the minds of Trump voters.
All right. Professor Mordi, we will leave it there for now. Thank you so much for being on Newsday.